Claire Hamilton, who lived in a small town in Connecticut, began each day by waking up at 7 in the morning and making coffee for her husband Ryan. She worked at a local accounting firm, and her meticulous and responsible nature earned the trust of her colleagues. Her husband Ryan was an IT engineer who often worked from home and was an ideal partner who actively helped with household chores. Although they had been married for 5 years, their relationship still maintained the warmth they had as newlyweds. Claire's sister Amy was a hairstylist who worked at a popular salon in the town center. With her bright and sociable personality, she had a good reputation among customers. Amy, who had divorced 3 years ago, was a single mother raising her 5-year-old son Tommy on her own. Regarding the reason for her divorce, Amy only said it was due to differences in values and didn't share many details even with her family. Her ex-husband Daniel had left town, and although child support was sent regularly, there was almost no visitation with Tommy. Their parents, Robert and Margaret, loved Amy and Tommy deeply. After Amy's divorce, they frequently provided financial support and often helped take care of Tommy. Tommy especially looked forward to going to his grandparents' house, and he loved growing vegetables in the backyard with Robert and baking cookies with Margaret. 5-year-old Tommy was curious, friendly, and something of an idol within the family. The adorable boy with blonde hair and blue eyes was loved by everyone. Claire and Ryan also doted on Tommy. Ryan was particularly good at playing with Tommy, often taking him to the park or playing games at home. Amy often told her sister with gratitude, "Ryan being here is such a help," and Claire was proud of her husband for this. On weekends, the 4 of them would sometimes go on picnics or to the movies. However, Claire carried one small pain deep in her heart. Despite being married for 5 years, they hadn't been blessed with children. Even when she had tests at the hospital, no particular problems were found. The doctor said, "You're still young, so there's no need to rush," but every time she saw Tommy's innocent smile, her longing for her own child grew stronger. Ryan gently said, "Let's treasure our time together," but sometimes Claire was overcome with anxiety that she might never become a mother. Her parents understood their daughter's feelings and encouraged them by saying, "God has his timing." However, when Claire saw the joyful expressions on her parents' faces when they looked at Tommy, she sometimes felt conflicted. She keenly felt how much joy having a grandchild brought her parents, and she wanted to give them that same joy. Still, the Hamilton family was a warm one. Once a month, they would gather at their parents' house for dinner, and they always celebrated birthdays and anniversaries together. Regarding Amy's ex-husband Daniel, when Tommy occasionally asked, "Where's Daddy?" the family would explain, "He lives far away, so we can't see him," and they didn't discuss it in depth. There was an unspoken understanding that they would all move forward positively together. On her way home from work, Claire often stopped by the flower shop to buy flowers for Margaret. Her mother would say, "Thank you always," and embrace her daughter. Ryan also fit right in as a family member, watching sports with Robert and helping with home repairs. In the midst of these peaceful days, Thanksgiving was approaching again this year. Preparations for the annual family dinner had begun, and Claire was truly looking forward to having the whole family gather together again this year. When mid-November passed, the small town in Connecticut quickly shifted into Thanksgiving preparation mode. Pumpkins and corn decorated storefronts, and the sweet aroma of pies drifted from various homes. For Claire, Thanksgiving was one of the most important events of the year. She truly looked forward to this special day when the whole family would gather and share their gratitude. Margaret had started preparing 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. She planned the menu for the annual family dinner, made shopping lists, and carefully organized the cooking schedule. Claire decided to stop by her mother's house after work to help with the preparations. "Dad will roast the turkey again this year, won't he?" Margaret said while peeling apples in the kitchen. "But let's divide the side dishes among ourselves as usual." Claire answered while putting on her apron, "I'll handle the mashed potatoes and green bean casserole." Ryan is also enthusiastic about making cranberry sauce. "Ryan is really good at cooking. I wonder if Amy will make something too." Amy said she'd bake pies. Both apple pie and pumpkin pie. The mother and daughter continued their cheerful conversation while working with their hands. Margaret treasured this time cooking together with her daughters even after they had married. Claire especially had loved cooking since childhood and found joy in carrying on her mother's recipes. That evening, Ryan finished work and came to pick her up. When he arrived at his mother-in-law's house, he always asked, "Is there anything I can help with today?" Margaret always told Claire, "Having Ryan here is such a help. Ryan, could you help with the table setting for next week's Thanksgiving?" Margaret said while taking large plates from the china cabinet. "I want to use grandmother's dishes that we use every year." "Of course. I'd be happy to help," Ryan answered with a smile. Just then, the front door opened and Amy and Tommy came.
Can you imagine making $10,000 a month just from YouTube, all from home? That's exactly what I did with Reddit stories. No face, no voice. Check the link in the description if you're curious.
Tommy shouted, "Grandma," and ran to Margaret, hugging her around the waist. "Tommy, you're energetic today too," Margaret said while stroking her grandson's head. "Are you looking forward to Thanksgiving dinner?" "Yes. I'm going to eat turkey," Tommy answered with sparkling eyes. Amy sat down in a chair looking tired. "The salon has been so busy. Before Thanksgiving, everyone wants to get their hair styled." "You've worked hard," Claire placed her hand on her sister's shoulder. "Don't overdo it." "I'm fine. But I'm especially looking forward to this year's Thanksgiving," Amy showed a slightly complex expression. "Tommy has grown up too, and I'm sure it will be a wonderful memory." When Tommy spotted Ryan, he immediately sat on his lap. "Uncle Ryan, let's go to the park together again." "Of course, Tommy," Ryan answered while stroking the boy's hair. "After Thanksgiving, if the weather's nice, shall we go?" Claire smiled watching this scene. Ryan really did adore Tommy. Even without children of their own, the time spent with their nephew warmed their hearts. That night, after returning home, Ryan was unusually quiet. Claire worriedly asked, "What's wrong? Are you tired?" "No, I was just thinking about things," Ryan answered vaguely. "Thanksgiving should be really enjoyable." "Yes. Being able to spend it with all the family this year is a blessing," Claire squeezed her husband's hand. "Having you here makes me and my parents very happy." Ryan showed a complex expression but quickly smiled. "I love your family too." A week before Thanksgiving, Robert was chopping wood in the backyard while thinking. While he was happy that the family could gather again this year, somewhere in his heart he harbored a small anxiety. He could sense that his wife Margaret was feeling something similar. "Dad, shall I help?" Ryan came out to the yard and called out. "Oh, thank you," Robert handed him the axe. "Having you here is really dependable." The two continued chopping wood in silence. Robert looked at his son-in-law while harboring complex feelings. Ryan was a good young man, and it was certain that he loved Claire. However, he also knew that deep down, Ryan felt guilty. Ryan stopped chopping wood and said, "I really love Claire." "I know," Robert answered quietly. "I understand how you're feeling too. But Ryan's voice was trembling. "Let's stop that talk for now," Robert said gently. "Thanksgiving is an important day for the family to gather. Let's all enjoy it together." Around that time, Margaret and Amy were preparing pies in the kitchen. Tommy was watching TV in the living room, and mother and daughter were talking alone. "Amy, are you really okay?" Margaret looked at her daughter's face and said, "Do you think this situation will continue forever?" "Mom, I'm fine," Amy answered while sifting flour. "I'm putting Tommy first. Besides, Claire might be happier not knowing. But someday." Margaret started to say and stopped. "Someday what?" Amy looked at her mother. "Are we doing something wrong?" Margaret didn't answer. As a mother who wished for her daughter's happiness, she didn't know which choice to make. 2 days before Thanksgiving, Claire went shopping alone. The supermarket was bustling with people preparing for Thanksgiving. While putting necessary ingredients in her cart, Claire was thinking about this year's Thanksgiving. While waiting in line at the checkout, she met her neighbor friend Jennifer. "Claire, are you spending Thanksgiving with the whole family again this year?" "Yes, it's our annual tradition," Claire answered with a smile. "What about your family?" "My in-laws are coming to our place too." "The children will be noisy and it'll be tough," Jennifer smiled wryly. "I envy you for not having children. You can enjoy quiet adult conversation, right?" Claire felt a momentary pang in her chest. "Well, yes. But with my nephew Tommy, it's lively. Amy's son, right? He's such a cute child. He looks just like his daddy." Claire tilted her head. "Like his daddy? But Daniel has dark hair." "Oh, I thought he looked like Ryan," Jennifer said casually. "Especially the eye color." At that moment, Claire felt as if her heart stopped for an instant. However, she quickly smiled. "Really? People often say that, but relatives sometimes resemble each other." After returning home, Claire thought about that conversation. Tommy did have blue eyes, but Daniel also had blue eyes. However, lately, Tommy's expressions and gestures seemed somehow similar to Ryan's. The morning of Thanksgiving was the beginning of the most special day of the year for the Hamilton family. Margaret stood in the kitchen early in the morning, working on the final preparation of the turkey. Robert prepared the grill in the backyard, and the aroma of Thanksgiving began to fill the house. Around 3 in the afternoon, Claire and Ryan arrived with their dishes. Claire brought carefully made mashed potatoes and green bean casserole, while Ryan carried his pride and joy, cranberry sauce. "That smells wonderful," Claire said as she entered the kitchen. "How's the turkey?" "Perfect," Margaret answered proudly. "Dad has been carefully roasting it since morning." Soon Amy and Tommy arrived as well. Amy brought beautifully baked apple pie and pumpkin pie, and Tommy wore a new shirt with his hair neatly combed. "Grandma!" Tommy ran from the entrance and hugged Margaret. "I smell turkey." "That's right, today is a special day," Margaret picked up her grandson. "Let's all eat together." At 5 in the afternoon, the entire family finally gathered around the dining table. The table was set with a beautifully roasted turkey at the center, surrounded by colorful dishes. Margaret's treasured grandmother's china was used, and the table was beautifully decorated with autumn flowers. Robert stood up and offered a prayer of gratitude. "We are truly grateful that our entire family is healthy this year and able to gather like this. We give thanks for everything that has supported us throughout this year, and we pray that we can all gather again next year." "Amen," everyone said in unison. When the meal began, the table was filled with pleasant conversation. Claire talked about her work this year, and Amy shared funny episodes from the salon. Ryan also spoke about new projects at his workplace, and Robert and Margaret talked about their community volunteer activities. "Claire, your mashed potatoes are absolutely delicious again this year," Amy praised her sister. "Teach me the recipe." "It's what I learned from Mom," Claire smiled. "The secret is using plenty of butter." "Ryan's cranberry sauce is wonderful too," Margaret said. "Where did you become so good at cooking?" "I learned from my mother," Ryan answered, looking slightly nervous. "She often cooked for the family too." Tommy listened to the adults' conversation while earnestly eating his turkey. Occasionally, he would exclaim, "Delicious," making everyone laugh. When the meal was about halfway through, Tommy suddenly stood up. "I want to sit next to Uncle Ryan." "Tommy, everyone is eating right now," Amy said in a flustered manner. "No, it's fine," Claire said with a smile. "He wants to eat together." Tommy moved to the chair next to Ryan and happily clung to his arm. "I love Uncle Ryan. I love Tommy too, Ryan stroked the boy's head. However, his hand was trembling slightly. This child is really attached to Ryan, Margaret said. However, there was a faint tension in her voice. Boys seek a father figure, Robert added. Ryan is being a good role model. That's when it happened. Tommy clung to Ryan and said, Daddy, when are you coming home again? A moment of silence fell over the table. Claire laughed in confusion and said, Tommy, Ryan is your uncle, right? He's not your daddy. However, Tommy shook his head. No, he's daddy. Mommy said so too. Claire's smile froze. She looked at Ryan. Her husband's face had gone pale. At that moment, Amy frantically covered Tommy's mouth with her hand. Tommy, no, Amy's voice was trembling. You can't say things like that. But Mommy said Daddy. Tommy was confused. It's just a child's imagination, Amy desperately tried to cover up. Because Uncle Ryan is so kind like a daddy, you thought that, right? However, Claire was noticing the abnormality of the situation. She looked around at each family member's face. Ryan kept his face down and said nothing. Amy was clearly upset. And her parents, for some reason, didn't seem surprised. As if they had known this moment would come someday. What's going on? Claire's voice was quiet, but there was an icy coldness in it. Claire, this is. Ryan finally began to speak. Explain, Claire stared at her husband. Why does Tommy call you daddy? Why is Amy trying to stop him? And why aren't Mom and Dad surprised? Robert and Margaret looked at each other. The secret they had kept for so long was finally about to be revealed. Claire, calm down, Margaret said in a trembling voice. Calm down. Claire stood up. My husband is being called daddy by my nephew, and you think I can stay calm? Tommy sensed the tense atmosphere among the adults and began to cry. Did I do something bad? Amy picked up her son. Tommy, you didn't do anything wrong. This is adult talk, so please go play in the other room. No, keep Tommy here, Claire said. This child is telling the truth. It's the adults who are lying. Ryan finally looked up. His eyes were filled with tears. Claire, What are you? Claire's voice trembled with anger. You've been married to me for 5 years, and you and my sister. Claire, please, Amy interrupted. Please what? Claire stared at her sister. You want me to silently overlook that you've been deceiving me? You and my husband, and... Claire suddenly understood everything clearly. Tommy's blue eyes, his expressions resembling Ryan, the real reason for Amy's divorce, and the conspiracy of the entire family. Everyone knew, Claire said in a trembling voice. Everyone except me. No one answered. The Thanksgiving dinner table, in contrast to the beautiful food, was enveloped in heavy silence. Claire looked around at each family member and realized that everything she had believed for 5 years had been a lie. What was I? Claire said, choking on her words. What was I to all of you? At that moment, Tommy said from Amy's arms, Mommy, why is Aunt Claire crying? Did Daddy do something bad? That innocent question was the final blow. Claire quietly stood up and went to get her coat. That night, Claire couldn't sleep at all. Ryan desperately tried to explain, but she wouldn't listen to a single word. While listening to her husband's breathing in the bed next to her, Claire reflected on their 5 years of marriage. Had everything been a lie? Had her belief that her husband loved her been just an illusion? The next morning, after Ryan left for work, Claire made up her mind. She had to know the truth. If the entire family was conspiring, she had no choice but to hear from an outsider. She decided to contact Amy's ex-husband, Daniel Wilson. Claire used old phone books and the internet to find Daniel's current contact information. She discovered that after the divorce, he had moved to a neighboring town. When Claire found his phone number, she dialed with trembling hands. "Hello, this is Daniel," a low voice answered the phone. "Daniel? This is Claire Hamilton, Amy's sister." There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. Eventually, Daniel sighed deeply. "Claire. I thought you might call. Could we meet and talk? I need to ask you about something important." "I understand. But do you really want to know the truth? Sometimes it's happier not knowing." "It's too late. Yesterday, Tommy let something slip." Daniel was silent again. "I see. So that time has finally come. All right, let's meet tomorrow at 2 o'clock at the coffee shop on Pine Street." The next day, Claire headed to the designated place. The coffee shop was small, and since it was a weekday afternoon, there were few customers. Daniel was sitting at a back table waiting for her. He looked haggard when she saw him for the first time in 3 years. "Claire," Daniel stood up to greet her. "Please sit down." Claire sat in the chair across from him and looked at Daniel's face. "Daniel, yesterday Tommy called Ryan daddy. And the whole family was upset. Please tell me the truth." Daniel wrapped his coffee cup in both hands and said, "I thought you would come. But I didn't think you'd come this soon." "What do you mean?" "Tommy isn't my son," Daniel said quietly. "He's Ryan's son." Although Claire had expected these words, actually hearing them made her body tremble. "Since when?" "Amy and Ryan's relationship started before you two got married," Daniel showed a bitter expression. "I knew from the beginning. But I loved Amy, so I decided to accept everything." "Then why did you divorce?" "After Tommy was born, the situation became complicated. Amy couldn't hide her feelings for Ryan anymore, and Ryan was also suffering from guilt. You were happy without knowing anything, and we didn't want to destroy that happiness." Claire covered her face with her hands. "You all deceived me together. Your parents know too," Daniel continued. "At first they were against it. But when Tommy was born, their love for their grandchild won out. And they also didn't want to hurt you. But you got divorced. Why?" Daniel was silent for a long time. Eventually, he opened his heavy mouth. "I loved Amy and Tommy. Even without blood ties, Tommy was my son. But Amy, in her guilt and confusion, began taking it out on me. And when you showed no signs of pregnancy, Ryan also became mentally unstable. What does my not conceiving have to do with anything? Ryan thought that if you had a child together, he could forget about Amy and Tommy. But as time passed, his love for Tommy grew stronger, and his guilt toward you also increased. Amy felt the same way. They were both suffering because they loved you." Claire couldn't stop her tears from flowing. "So you became the sacrifice." "I don't think of it as a sacrifice," Daniel said gently. "I couldn't accept their relationship anymore. And I knew the day would come when you'd learn the truth. I thought there would be less confusion if I wasn't there when that happened. But what about Tommy? Tommy still remembers me. We meet secretly once a month." Daniel's eyes became gentle. "Ryan also comes to see Tommy sometimes, without your knowledge." Claire was shocked. "Ryan does? On days when you're late from work or on business trips? He spends time as a father at Amy's house. Your parents know about this too." All the pieces fit together. Ryan's unnatural overtime, Amy's meaningful smiles, her parents' subtle attitudes. Claire had been completely isolated. "Why didn't you tell me until now?" Claire asked in a trembling voice. "I didn't want to hurt you," Daniel answered sincerely. "You're truly a good person. Ryan loves you too. He's just torn between two loves." "Two loves?" Claire smiled bitterly. "Do you think his love for me is real?" "That's for you to judge," Daniel said. But from what I can see, Ryan loves you. He just can't abandon his fatherly love for Tommy either. Claire stood up. Thank you, Daniel, for telling me the truth. Claire, Daniel also stood up. What do you plan to do now? I don't know, Claire answered honestly. But I can't continue a relationship built on lies. If you need any help, please contact me anytime. Daniel squeezed her hand. You're not alone. That night, Claire went home and confronted Ryan. Her husband looked at her expression and seemed to understand everything. Did you meet with Daniel? Ryan asked quietly. Yes, Claire answered. I heard everything. Claire, Ryan tried to apologize. For 5 years, Claire interrupted his words. For 5 years, you all continued to deceive me. While knowing I wanted children, you were already a father. I love you, Ryan said tearfully. Please believe at least that. You say you love me while lying for 5 years. Claire said calmly. Is that love? Ryan couldn't answer anything. Claire went to the bedroom, quietly packed her things, and left the house. Ryan desperately apologized and tried to stop her, but the 5 years of lies were irreparable. To say you love me while betraying me this much, Claire's final words were deeply etched in Ryan's heart. The next day, divorce proceedings began. Claire calmly proceeded with the legal procedures, and 6 months later, the divorce was officially finalized. Property division also proceeded smoothly, and Claire prepared to begin a new life. Meanwhile, Ryan and Amy's relationship didn't go as they hoped. When the secret they had hidden for so long came to light, heavy guilt lay between them. Even after officially being together, the memory of betraying Claire continued to torment them both. The biggest change was that support from their parents ceased. Robert and Margaret were deeply disappointed in their daughter's actions and began keeping their distance, saying they couldn't face Claire. Financial aid also stopped, and Amy realized anew how difficult it was to raise Tommy alone. When the townspeople learned of the situation, they began casting cold glances. Rumors that family can't be trusted spread throughout town, and Amy's salon began to feel the effects. Some customers stopped coming, saying they didn't want their hair cut by someone who had an affair. The situation was similar at Ryan's workplace. Colleagues said nothing outwardly, but their attitudes clearly changed. Promotion talks fizzled out, and he was removed from important projects. 9 months later, Claire moved to another town in Massachusetts. She began working at a new accounting firm and started participating in local volunteer activities. The people she met there, not knowing her past, interacted with her based only on her character. In particular, a woman named Martha, whom she met while volunteering at a senior center, became like a new family member to Claire. Family isn't determined by blood alone, Martha often said. The people you choose with your heart are your real family. Claire began visiting Martha's house every Sunday, cooking together and doing garden work. Martha's son and his wife also warmly welcomed Claire, always inviting her for Thanksgiving and birthdays. A year later, Claire had an unexpected reunion. Daniel had coincidentally moved to the same town. The two deepened their friendship and healed each other's wounds. Daniel told Claire, "I'm really glad you found new happiness." "It's thanks to you," Claire replied. "If you hadn't told me the truth, I might still be living in lies. You're a strong person. You had the courage to accept the truth and walk a new path." One day, Claire happened to see Tommy on the street. The 6-year-old boy looked more worn than before. He was with Ryan and Amy, but all three looked exhausted. Tommy noticed Claire and waved, but Amy hurriedly led him away. That night, Claire was convinced that her decision had been right. Even with blood ties, relationships full of deception are not true family. She deeply understood that relationships based on honesty and love create real bonds. 2 years later on Thanksgiving, Claire was sitting around the dinner table with Martha's family. The table was set with delicious food, and heartfelt laughter echoed. "I am truly grateful to be able to spend this time with all of you again this year," Claire said in prayer. Martha, sitting next to her, squeezed her hand. "We're grateful that Claire is here with us too." Claire smiled. She understood from the bottom of her heart that true family is not determined by blood ties, but by relationships with people who respect each other and love honestly. In the new relationships she had chosen, Claire was walking a truly happy and authentic life. The pain of the past would never disappear, but it was also a precious experience that formed who she was today. Claire continued walking forward.